Welcome to the deep dive. It's great to have you with us as we plunge into another fascinating topic, guided by this really interesting stack of sources you've pulled together.
That's right. Our goal really is to be your guides through all this material. We'll pull out the key insights, maybe some surprising facts, different viewpoints, so you walk away feeling like you really get it without having to wade through everything yourself.
And today, we are focusing on a show that's, well, it's more than just popular, isn't it? It's become this global cultural thing, the K-drama, crash landing into you.
Absolutely. Crash landing into you, or CLOY, as
Mm.
many fans call it. It captured hearts everywhere.
Yeah.
It's definitely a show that gets people talking, connecting across different cultures.
Yeah, definitely. So our mission today is to unpack what exactly makes this series so special. We're going to use all these articles, research notes, fan discussions, academic takes, everything you provided to explore not just the central romance, which is huge, obviously, but also the layers of meaning, the character journeys. They're unforgettable, really,
Yeah.
and the bigger cultural impact it had. Think of this as your essential guide, your shortcut, maybe, to understanding the why behind the CLOY obsession.
And we'll be pulling insights from all sorts of places within these sources, the critical reviews, the deep analyses, and, yeah, the really passionate fan perspectives, too. It all adds up to the full picture.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. The setup, it's pretty improbable, but it hooks you immediately. The whole story pivots around Yoon and Seri,
Right.
and the sources all paint her as this, total powerhouse figure, a high-flying, very self-reliant South Korean chaebol heiress.
Yeah, but not just any heiress. She was kind of cast out by her family, wasn't she? And then built her own massive lifestyle brand, Seri's Choice, totally from scratch.
Exactly. She's super successful.
She really embodies that modern South Korean ambition, that independence, sharp, successful. She seems almost invincible in her very controlled, very wealthy world. But as the show kicks off, her whole reality is about to get quite literally blown off course.
Right. The big inciting incident, that paragliding accident. Talk about being in the wrong place at the wrong time, or
Yeah.
maybe, the right place for destiny.
Precisely. The sources detail how this sudden, completely freak gust of wind just snatches her during a paragliding trip, throws her way off course, and leads to this utterly improbable crash landing in North Korea, like right inside the demilitarized zone. It's just this wild twist of fate that yanks her out of her predictable life and throws her into something totally unimaginable.
And she's lost, terrified in this place that's just completely surreal, hostile even. And that's when she meets the person who changes everything.
Captain Ri Jong-hyuk,
Mm-hmm.
the sources identify him as a Korean People's Army officer,
Mm-hmm.
and crucially, he's from an elite family in Pyongyang, high-ranking, which gives him a certain status, sure, but it also puts immense pressure on him. He's the one who finds Seri tangled up in a tree right there in the DMZ.
And those first interactions, wow, they are just electric with tension, with danger. For him, finding a South Korean civilian, especially there, it's an immediate, massive threat.
Oh, absolutely. Not just to his career, but potentially his whole family, his life. So hiding her isn't really a choice. It's an instant life or death necessity.
And so begins her time hidden away in his small North Korean village, which is such a stark contrast, almost jarring, compared to her luxury penthouse back in Seoul.
Right. She's guided, protected, maybe a bit reluctantly at first by Captain Ri.
And this is where you really start to see her shed more than just her designer clothes, That Asia-Pacific Journal piece specifically mentions how she starts adapting, trading her sophisticated image for simpler local clothes.
It's a visual cue, isn't it? She has to strip away her defenses, her assumptions about life, and just adapt to this fundamentally different world, all while relying on the man who, well, basically stumbled upon her.
And it's through sharing this incredibly dangerous, hidden experience that their relationship really starts to evolve. The sources all highlight how their bond deepens through these key moments: connection, conflict, making huge sacrifices for each other, all within this very secluded, secret world.
Yeah, the setting is so important there.
And the show does such a great job using these small, everyday details to show the huge cultural and practical gaps between their worlds and how Seri has to adjust. That Asia-Pacific Journal article gives those really memorable examples.
Like the charcoal briquettes.
Yes! For heating and cooking. Totally alien to Seri, who's only ever known, modern gas burners and instant hot water.
Or that amazing scene with the clam bulgogi,
Oh, yeah.
where instead of a barbecue grill, they just put the shellfish right on the ground and light it up with petrol.
It's so resourceful, but so shocking to her at first.
Right. And it becomes this weirdly bonding moment. She's initially horrified by the method, then totally blown away by how good it tastes. It's those specific sensory details that kind of ground the whole extraordinary situation and really highlight the cultural exchange happening between them.
But obviously, she can't stay hidden in North Korea forever.
Yeah.
So the story shifts, right? It moves into the incredibly complex, incredibly dangerous efforts to get Seri back home, back across the border to South Korea.
And that journey south is just packed with peril. They're navigating treacherous terrain, dodging border patrols, dealing with surveillance, relying entirely on Ri Jong-hyok's smarts and the loyalty of his squad. It really tests their bond, deepens their reliance on each other.
And then, just when you think things might settle down, there's this twist that just ramps up the stakes again. Ri Jong-hyok eventually follows her to South Korea,
Which completely flips the script. Now he's the fish out of water, trying to navigate Seoul, this hyper-modern, super fast-paced city.
a place that's technically, the other half of his homeland, but feels totally alien after decades of division and living under such a different system.
Exactly. His struggles trying to understand South Korean slang or technology or just the social norms, they provide a lot of humor, but also these really poignant moments of cultural shock.
And it's not just cultural shock. They face very real, very dangerous external threats in the South, too. The sources highlight the main villain, Jo Cheol-gang,
Right, the ruthless North Korean security officer.
who pursues them relentlessly across the border. And he's not just after them, he's also on the run himself, wanted for embezzlement and murder back north. It creates this really tangled web of danger that just follows them.
And there's an interesting kind of dark layer pointed out in one source, that Reddit thread titled, "Crash Landing Shouldn't Have Been Made." It mentions that this villain's own father might have committed crimes against humanity.
What?
Yeah, it adds this historical weight to his character's background, even if the show itself focuses more on his immediate crimes against the main couple.
And while Captain Ri is trying to figure out life in the South, the story also pulls us back into Seri's world. Her very complicated life, especially the pretty cutthroat dynamics within her wealthy K-ball family.
Right, that intense rivalry with her half-brothers. They're all fighting for control of the family company.
The episode focus mentions this as a key element of her life back south. But interestingly, another source from that Reddit thread, My Thoughts on CLOI, suggests maybe the depth of that rivalry isn't fully explored. Like, some viewers felt it was more of a plot device than a really fleshed-out family drama.
That's a fair point. It definitely drives some of the conflict for her in the South.
Okay, so while all that's going on, the show weaves in this parallel romance. And for a lot of viewers, it's just as compelling, maybe even more heartbreaking in some ways. The story of Seo Dan and Gu Sung-jun.
Oh, absolutely. Their path is so intricately tangled up with Seri and Ri Jong-hyok's. You've got Seo Dan. She's Ri Jong-hyok's fiancé by arrangement. From North Korea, very sophisticated, proud, seems quite cold initially.
And then Gu Sung-jun, he's this charming, but kind of shady South Korean con man. He actually fled to North Korea to escape Seri's family because he ripped them off.
Talk about complicated beginnings.
Right, but the relationship just blossoms so unexpectedly. It's this reluctant connection between two people who are kind of outsiders in their own situations, and they find this weird solace and understanding in each other.
It becomes this really beautiful, contrasting love story running alongside the main one. And the sources really emphasize how their destinies intersect in critical ways, with Seri and Ri Jong-hyok's story adding so much dramatic weight and emotional depth.
Eventually, though, the whole complex situation forces Ri Jong-hyok to return to North Korea.
Yes, the narrative brings them full circle. It leads to this sequence of really intense events back in the North. Final confrontations, major sacrifices, not just by the main couple, but by the supporting characters around them, too.
It's a climax that really puts everyone's loyalty, their courage, to the test. What are they willing to risk for each other, for their beliefs?
Definitely. The show then moves towards wrapping things up, tying off the main story threads.
And the ending. It's discussed quite a bit in the sources, like the episode focus and that Reddit thread about whether CLOI is worth watching. It's notable, isn't it?
Very. Their paths do cross again, but crucially, it acknowledges the ongoing reality, the limitations imposed by the real-world division between North and South.
So it's not just a simple, clean, happily ever after living in the same place.
No, it's more. Bittersweet, maybe. It hints at reunion, but across borders. It acknowledges those geopolitical constraints. One comment specifically called this nuanced ending across borders the best ending discussion they'd seen for a K-drama tackling this tough theme.
That makes sense. Okay, let's shift gears a bit from the plot and really dig into the characters because,
Yeah.
let's be honest, for so many people, they are the heart and soul of this show. Starting with Yoon Seri, we've talked about her being this high-flying CEO, but what do the sources say about her depth?
Well, consistently, sources like the episode Focus describe her initial portrayal as, yeah, formidable, self-reliant, incredibly capable. She built her empire herself, basically, after being sidelined by her own family. She has this air of confidence, maybe even a bit of arrogance.
But that time in North Korea just strips all that away, doesn't it? Her transformation is maybe the biggest character arc in the whole show. We see her go from this seemingly untouchable businesswoman to someone capable of real vulnerability, deep love, genuine connection, especially through her experiences with Captain Rhee.
And her core traits just shine through adversity. Her quick wit, it gets her out of so many scrapes and provides a lot of the humor. Her incredible resilience, facing unbelievable circumstances. And just that unique ability she has to adapt to situations that would totally break most people. She's not passive at all. She's actively figuring things out, coping.
And there's that fascinating little detail in the Asia Pacific Journal article about her family background, her lineage. She's a Hallyuwood.
Yeah, a clan historically linked to Hallyu, which is a northern seaside town.
And the source points out the deep irony there. Her family roots are actually in the north. It's like this subtle foreshadowing of her connection there, almost like destiny kind of nudged her into that crash landing.
It's a really clever way the show weaves in that idea of connection across the, let's face it, arbitrary divide, suggesting maybe there's this deeper, fated tie to the North Korean land itself for this super modern South Korean woman.
And then there's Captain Rhee Ong-hyuk, played with such quiet intensity. How do the sources analyze him?
They consistently see him as having this stoic military officer persona, but it's masking a really profound sense of loyalty, a deep warmth, and this hidden sensitivity.
He's definitely defined by duty, disciplined, reserved at first. But underneath that uniform is a man deeply committed to protecting the people he cares about, his family, his men, and eventually, of course, Seri. His journey is really about gradually opening his heart, kind of forced open by Seri's chaotic arrival and the feelings she stirs up in him.
And the sources also mention his musical past, that he's a talented pianist.
Oh, right. That adds such a wonderful layer to him, this hidden depth, this passion that contrasts so sharply with his rigid military life. It hints at the life he could have had, maybe under different circumstances.
And just like Seri, there's irony in his lineage too. He's a Jeonju-ri, a clan with historical roots in the South.
No way.
Yeah, the Asia Pacific Journal highlights this too. Both main characters have family roots on the other side. It just reinforces that theme of fated connection across this artificial border. Makes you really wonder, was their meeting just a random accident, or was something else at play?
Okay, but this brings us to a really significant point of discussion that comes up in the sources. Rhee Jong-hyuk is portrayed as, a patriotic officer in the Korean People's Army. And that Reddit thread, "Crash Landing Shouldn't Have Been Made," raises some serious questions about the potentially morally gray area of his position, given the realities of the North Korean regime.
Yes, this is definitely a point of sensitivity highlighted across the board. Some viewers, some critics, felt the show kind of romanticized his role. Presented him as this largely virtuous hero without really grappling with the complexities or the potential ethical problems of serving the military of a country with, frankly, a documented history of severe human rights abuses.
They found it uncomfortable.
Yeah, uncomfortable, even problematic for some, to romanticize a figure associated with that regime. The source mentioned some people drawing comparisons they found jarring, like hypothetically romanticizing figures from other problematic historical military forces. Though it's really important to stress that comparison reflects a specific viewpoint in that source, not some kind of universal agreement.
Understood. But there's another side to that argument in the sources too, right? A more nuanced take.
Definitely. Other sources, other commenters, they argue that military service in North Korea, especially for someone from an elite family like his, might not be a genuine choice. It could be compulsory or just an expectation tied to his family and position. That's brought up in one Reddit comment.
So being in the army doesn't automatically mean he personally supports everything the regime does.
That's the argument. That perspective suggests you can portray a North Korean soldier's humanity, their personal integrity, without necessarily endorsing the political system they serve. His actions are seen as driven by his own morality, his loyalty to people, rather than just blind patriotism to the regime. It really shows how audiences grappled with that political backdrop and his role in it. The debate is clearly there in the material you provided.
Okay, moving beyond the main couple. The second leads, Seo Dan and Gu Song-jun, are just so integral. The sources really dig into their complexities. They're much more than just a B-plot romance.
Absolutely. Seodan starts off seeming quite cold, right? This
Yeah.
sophisticated musician from a privileged Pyongyang family, totally focused on her arranged marriage to Captain Ri.
And Gu Song-jun is charming, witty, but yeah, he's a fugitive con man with a messy past. Their first interactions are pretty prickly, born out of circumstance, not attraction.
But it's their shared isolation, maybe their disillusionment with who they thought they wanted, and the unexpected vulnerability they show each other that forges this unique and, yeah, deeply poignant connection. Their romance is described everywhere as intertwined with the main plot and really critical for adding emotional depth and driving the narrative forward.
Seo Dan's character arc gets special attention in sources like the My Thoughts on CLOY Reddit thread. She starts the show almost entirely defined by this decade-long wait for Ri Jung-hyuk.
Right.
But through everything that happens, especially her relationship with Gu Song-jun, she grows so much. She finds this new sense of self-worth, this dignity that's totally independent of what society expects or whether she gets the guy.
One source really frames her journey as this powerful example of a woman carving out her own destiny, finding fulfillment on her own terms, which is seen as a really positive, empowering message from her storyline.
And then there's the North Korean military squad, a huge part of the show's warmth, the humor, the emotional core. You've got Pyo Chi-soo, the cynical one,
Park Kwang-beom, the quiet, handsome one,
Kim Ji-myuk, the total K-drama fanboy.
and Guillaume Undong, the sweet, innocent youngest member.
Their distinct personalities are just key to why they work so well together and why we love them. Initially, they're just assigned to guard Siri, keep an eye on her, but their relationship with her just transforms.
It really does. They go from being suspicious and maybe a bit resentful to this unwavering loyalty, this fierce protectiveness, and just genuine affection.
They bring so much of the comedy, especially as they try to navigate the sheer absurdity of hiding her, but they also bring so much emotional depth. They really become her found family in the North, filling that void left by her, frankly, messed up biological family. Sources everywhere praise their chemistry and how much heart they bring to the show.
And there are those little specific moments mentioned, right? Like the Asia Pacific Journal noting Game Undong, the youngest, being amazed by a charcoal briquette because he'd only ever used twigs before.
Yeah, it's such a small thing, but it powerfully shows the difference in their everyday lives compared to the South.
And the North Korean village women, the Jumas, they also play such vital supporting roles. They're shown dealing with the ins and outs, the challenges of daily life in that village community, often getting caught up in hilarious misunderstandings and gossip about Sari.
But even though they're initially suspicious of this mysterious woman from the South, they ultimately show this surprising kindness, this real community spirit. They help her hide, help her adapt. It really illustrates the strong bonds in that village and maybe challenges some stereotypes. The sources definitely note how they contribute to portraying that community life.
And other supporting characters add richness, too. My thoughts on CLOI Reddit comment specifically calls out Seo Dan's mother
Oh, yeah.
for her surprising sort of purity and kindness hiding underneath that stern exterior.
Right.
And Ri Jung-hyuk's mother for her quiet strength in standing up to her powerful husband to protect their son. These characters just add layers of humanity, familial complexity.
So beyond the amazing plot and these unforgettable characters, what are the big themes that Crash Landing Into You really digs into?
Well, at its absolute core, it's a deep dive into forbidden love and destiny, right? It's the ultimate star-crossed lover's story, but the stars are geopolitical borders. The episode focus nails this as the main engine of the whole narrative.
And we talked about that lineage irony, her family from the North, his from the South. The Asia Pacific Journal uses that to discuss destiny as this, I don't know, mysterious force, maybe even arbitrary or coincidental, that just pulls these two together against literally impossible odds.
Which leads to that constant question the series makes you ask. How much is fate? How much is free will? Are their paths set because of these old family ties and where they happen to land? Or is it their choices, their sacrifices, their efforts that actually forge their destiny together, despite everything? The drama really keeps you guessing on that.
And the North-South divide itself. Obviously, it's the huge external conflict. The show explores what that means symbolically, separation, longing, but also practically. The immense danger, the logistical nightmare of just trying to cross that border.
It's the ultimate wall blocking their love. which makes their connection feel even more precious, more precarious. But underneath all that enforced separation, you feel this underlying longing for connection, maybe a subtle hope for reunification or at least understanding, represented by the bonds people form across that line.
Loyalty, sacrifice, and family are also huge themes. You see that unwavering commitment, not just between Sari and Captain Ree, but so vividly with the military squad towards her. It goes way beyond duty. It becomes this genuine, selfless affection and protection.
And self-sacrifice is woven through everything. The risks Captain Ree takes for Sari, the danger the squad puts themselves in by hiding her, and, as that Reddit discussion mentioned, the profound risks Ree's family takes helping them, knowing the severe consequences they could face from the regime. It shows how individual choices in that kind of society can ripple outwards and affect loved ones deeply.
And the show does such a beautiful job illustrating the idea of chosen families. That bond between Sari and the squad, and later the village women, it's so powerful. They become her protectors, her confidants, her surrogate family in the north, filling a gap left by her own fractured family back south. It really highlights that family isn't just blood. It's about the bonds we build through shared experience and caring for each other.
The drama also manages, somehow, to navigate the huge cultural differences between North and South Korea with both humor and thoughtfulness.
Yeah, those examples like the briquettes or the clam cooking, they aren't just random funny bits. They really highlight how basic daily life operates under such vastly different systems. The show uses these differences for conflict, sure, but also for a lot of the comedy.
And it shows how the characters, especially Sari, initially clueless about the North, and Captain Ree struggling in the South, learn to understand, maybe even appreciate, and ultimately bridge those cultural gaps through empathy and just spending time together. It's about finding the common humanity despite different norms.
Ultimately, running through all of this is a universal message about the power of human connection.
Exactly. The show seems to argue that empathy, understanding, genuine connection, they can cross any barrier, whether it's political, cultural, geographic, or personal. As one source from that Dear Quick Found Reddit thread suggests, dramas like CLOY, because they're so immersive and have such well-drawn characters, can actually help viewers humanize complex political situations, help us empathize with people living under very different circumstances.
It lets you look past the headlines, past the abstract idea of a border, and connect with the individuals on the other side, see their shared humanity, their struggles, their capacity for love and loyalty, despite everything.
Okay, but now we have to get into one of the most talked about, maybe most debated aspects of CLOY, its portrayal of North Korea. How much of what we actually see is real and how much is, dramatic license?
This is where the sources really show a range of opinions. The drama definitely tries to depict certain aspects of North Korean life, daily routines in a village, the military structure, fashion, social norms, even specific technologies or the lack of them. That Asia-Pacific Journal article lists things the show portrays, like shortages of consumer goods, hospital supplies, frequent blackouts, simple food being common.
But that same source also points out that the show kind of pushes back against some simplistic, maybe outdated Western stereotypes. It shows people in Pyongyang in seemingly normal places, department stores, coffee shops, beer halls, suggesting life isn't just empty streets and staged parades. It notes that few people in the specific areas shown seem truly hungry, while still including better siblings. Trying for a slightly more nuanced view, maybe, even if it's still limited.
However, this portrayal is also where a lot of the criticism comes in, based on the sources. A strong viewpoint, really articulated in that crash landing shouldn't have been made. Reddit thread argues that the show romanticizes North Korea, and especially its military personnel, to a degree that's problematic.
Right. Critics argue it uses rose-colored glasses when showing a country with a known record of severe human rights violations, famine, trafficking, political oppression. They basically question if a country with those realities should even be the setting for a rom-com, feeling it might trivialize or sanitize the situation for citizens there.
There's specific talk about how military characters like Captain Ree and his squad are shown, right?
Exactly. This critical view contrasts the show's depiction, these relatively kind, honorable soldiers, with accounts from defectors who describe cruelty, harsh conditions, mistreatment, especially towards women soldiers and prisoners, suggesting the show offered an overly positive, maybe unrealistic picture of military life.
And the food issue also comes up as a point where the show might have taken significant license. While the show depicts simple food, but implies people aren't actually starving in the areas Siri visits, my thoughts on CLORY Reddit comment really emphasizes that food scarcity is a huge ongoing problem across North Korea, leading to widespread malnutrition for average people. Even to Pyongyang residents might fare slightly better.
So, these criticisms essentially argue that the show put commercial appeal and the romantic fantasy first, maybe glossing over the harsher realities and potentially giving a false or overly favorable impression to a global audience. Kang, in the Asia-Pacific Journal, argues the portrayal ends up reflecting a South Korean understanding more than an authentic North Korean reality, and might not even resonate with actual North Koreans living under the system.
And just to reiterate for everyone listening, we're presenting these different viewpoints because they are present in the source material. It shows the really complex and sensitive debate that surrounds the show's handling of this political reality.
Absolutely. And on the other side of that debate, the sources also present defenses and nuances. Well, one counterargument, seen in various Reddit comments, is that the show actually serves a valuable purpose by humanizing North Korean civilians. The idea is that people in the North are often ostracized or seen suspiciously in the South, and the show reminds viewers, hey, it's not their fault where they were born. By showing their daily lives, their community bonds, their kindness, the show offers a more humanizing perspective.
And there's the point about military service again, that it might be compulsory, not a choice reflecting personal support for the regime.
Right. That perspective, raised in some comments, suggests characters like Ri Jong-hyuk can be portrayed as moral individuals acting out of personal integrity and loyalty, separate from the state's actions.
Another defense compares CLOY to other dramas, like romantic shows featuring characters from industries with known problems: oil, big corporations, cables, even historical dramas about empires with questionable pasts. That's noted in one Reddit discussion.
Yeah, that viewpoint basically asks, why should portraying a North Korean officer face uniquely harsh criticism compared to fictional portrayals of characters involved in other sensitive or complex areas?
Interesting point.
And the Asia-Pacific Journal article, while acknowledging the show isn't perfect, also suggests CLOY attempts a subtly educational mission. It argues that despite the romance, the show offers a more varied, more sensitive portrayal of North Korean life than many simplistic Western films, seeing it as a step towards more nuance, even if it is filtered through a South Korean perspective.
So, as you can clearly hear from the sources, the debate is lively. It really reflects that inherent challenge, using a deeply sensitive geopolitical reality as the backdrop for a fictional romance meant for mass appeal.
And speaking of challenges, the basic premise itself raises plausibility questions, doesn't it? Accidentally paragliding across the DMZ, hiding someone for that long, getting them back, and then him following her.
Yeah, the episode focus acknowledges that. While the show tries for some realistic detail in depicting life up north, the core idea and a lot of the plot points definitely rely on dramatic license to make the story work. It's a premise that asks you to suspend quite a bit of disbelief for the sake of the romance and adventure.
But despite all the debates about realism and the sheer implausibility of the setup, Crash Landing Into You achieves something truly massive. Unprecedented global popularity.
Oh, completely. Sources like the Episode Focus and Asia-Pacific Journal all point to its enormous success. And they highlight how crucial its quick, subtitled release on Netflix was, being available almost immediately to over 220 million subscribers globally. That was a total game changer for its reach.
The timing was also a huge factor. The Asia-Pacific Journal notes its popularity just exploded because it resonated so strongly with audiences looking for comfort and escape during the COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns. Millions were stuck at home needing engaging stories, and CLOY really delivered that.
And it wasn't just big on Netflix, it broke into the mainstream global conversation, getting significant attention from major international news outlets: The Washington Post, Al Jazeera, The Guardian, NBC News. That really speaks to its cultural impact beyond the usual K-drama audience.
Domestically in South Korea, it was also a monster hit, set records for viewership on cable TV at the time.
Sources like the Hallyu wave article position CLOY as a really significant contributor to the Hallyu wave, that global spread of South Korean culture. It's mentioned right alongside huge K-pop acts like BTS and acclaimed films like Parasite, showing the worldwide impact of Korean entertainment.
And streaming platforms like Netflix are seen as key drivers here. The Melos in K-drama source notes how these platforms basically act like ferries, carrying emotions, stories, and Korean culture across geographic and cultural lines, making shows like CLOY instantly accessible worldwide.
The show's lasting appeal seems to come from its unique blend of genres. It pulls it off so well. It's not just a romance. It smoothly weaves in thrilling action, genuinely funny comedy, really touching melodrama, and that subtle, though debated layer of geopolitical commentary.
And its focus on deep emotional connection, believable character growth, combined with that well-structured, usually around 16 episodes, format common in K-dramas, that resonates globally. Viewers appreciate digging deep into characters and relationships. A comment on the Dear Cuffin' Girl Reddit thread mentions this structure allows for that satisfying development.
Plus, for a lot of viewers, the real-life romance factor didn't hurt. The fact that the leads, Hun Bin and Sun Yejin, actually fell in love, got married, and had a baby,
Right.
it kind of blurred the lines between the story and reality, making that on-screen chemistry feel even more electric, more real. As one Reddit user put it on the Is It Worth Watching CLOY thread, knowing they got together in real life makes rewatching the show even more special for fans.
It's definitely achieved iconic status now. Mentioned alongside foundational K-dramas like Coffee Prince or acclaimed ones like My Mister, it leaves a real impression, stays with you long after you finish watching. For many, it was their gateway into K-dramas, delivering those powerful emotions and strong character bonds that really define the genre's global appeal.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Crash Landing Into You, its core appeal really seems to be that combination. The compelling, high-stakes story, those unforgettable characters who become like a chosen family, and the show's ambitious attempt to explore big themes, love, division, loyalty, all against this incredibly unique and, yeah, debated backdrop.
It's a series that just masterfully blended romantic fantasy with glimpses of a complex reality. It wove together adventure, comedy, social commentary in a way that just struck a chord with millions worldwide.
It gave people comfort, escape, powerful emotional connection, especially during a tough time globally. But it also sparked conversations and, for many, maybe humanized a politically charged situation by focusing on individual stories.
And that really leaves us with a final thought for you to mull over. How does a fictional story, a love story about crossing one of the world's most fortified borders, manage to tap into something so universal? That deep longing we all have for connection and understanding in a world that often feels incredibly divided.
Or maybe think about what CLOY tells us about the power of storytelling itself. How a drama can tackle a sensitive, real-world issue, generate important discussions about how things are portrayed, and still provide so much comfort, joy, and emotional connection to a massive global audience.
It really stands as a kind of testament to how culture, even fictional stories, can build bridges, create shared experiences across divides that seem impossible to cross.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into Crash Landing Into You. We really hope you enjoyed exploring its many layers and its impact as much as we did.
Until next time.